Hello, are you looking for a new multi-skill classroom project that will get you excited and pump up your students about learning English? Well, welcome to this talk on doing a literary film analysis leading to crafting a good film essay analysis. And for several years now, I've been using a highly successful film project with my students, and I'd like to share my ideas with you for teaching your students how to write an amazing film analysis essay. Hello, my name's Frank Bankowski, creator of Teaching Writing to Intermediate and Advanced Learners, a fully online course offered by English Learner Portal and accredited by Bremen University for 3 university credits. So let me go now to an overview of today's talk. So let me give you some ideas here on what I'll be doing. First, I'll give you some background information on teaching literary analysis through films and novels. Second, I'll show you how this film project neatly integrates the 4 language skills: listening, reading, speaking, and writing. Third, it'll describe the writing components of the project. And finally, I'll share ideas on giving learners automated corrective feedback. Yes, you've heard right. Automated corrective feedback so they can write more and you can write less. The full version of this talk is contained in the tape script, and there are also handouts that are available. So let me go on and go to my next slide is why I use literature in the language classroom. And I have here some very good reasons, 7 in fact, for using literature to teach language. And in fact, the first reason has to do with authenticity. It's authentic. We have genuine language that's passed the test of time across cultures and generations. It's also a culturally enriching experience for learners. They get to learn about social issues and values in another culture, whether it's particularly American, Canadian, or English. I also value literature because it's language focused. It increases readers' receptive vocabulary through extensive reading, and it also provides rich content for new language, new vocabulary, and language structures. And of course, it helps with writing. If I go on now, it is engaging. I love that word engaging. It gets students involved in the learning experience, personally involved in the stories they read. You might say that learners inhabit the text as they focus on the development of the story. It's all about storytelling. If I go on now, the literature is real-world centered. It often puts learners in real-life problem situations that they have to deal with. And it also deals with universal themes that all human beings experience, such as love, friendship, prejudice, and so on. And finally, very important, using literature is motivating for learners. So I use with my students, as you see on the slide, short stories, poems, novels, plays, American, British, and Canadian, Irish, but I'm focusing today on using film in the classroom. Okay, so let me go on now and talk about actually the preparation for the writing assignment, which is writing a critical essay. So here now, I'll introduce you to the literary and visual elements that I explore with my students. Things like studying different features of literature. I'll talk about reading part of the novel on which a good film is based, and also I'll talk about note-taking, reading to film reviews. So students have to actually prepare through a speaking assignment the writing assignment. And what do? I use a case study, as you see in the slide here, Forrest Gump, both the film and the novel, which are just which is a knockout movie, really. And I refer students to useful online resources, such as you see there, Google Books, the IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, as well as this website, Best books made into movies to help students choose a good film that's based on a novel. And students get to work in a group of students. If I have 25 students in my class, they get to work in an expert group, let's say 5 students in 5 expert groups, having a team leader, and then they also break up later into mixed groups that I'll talk about. So let me go on and talk about now in my next slide. I also share with students questions about the novel. So I give students a number of questions as they read the first 30 pages of the novel, and these questions can include things like who are the characters in the novel, in the film, and what are some of their characteristics and qualities. So let's go on now to my next slide here. So literary elements. So learners get to study, will have studied before presenting the film activity. They'll study the meaning of thesis statement or central idea. They will also look at 1 or 2 literary elements such as character, plot, point of view, which is very important to review with learners. As far as plot dramatic structure goes, for example, we look closely at how plot dramatic structure uses a classic pattern beginning with exposition and finishing with a denouement or resolution to the story. And I give students questions about the plot of the story so they can try to answer. Now if we move on to my next slide here, I also share with students, here's some questions about plot. Here are 3 interesting questions, and there are more in the transcript that you can obtain. Does the exposition or beginning of the story catch the reader's interest? And what's the main conflict? There's always conflict in the story. And is there any internal and external conflict in the story? There are, as I say, other questions in the transcript. We also look at here we look at setting, we look at style, theme, as well as visual elements in analyzing a story. And as learners prepare for the speaking present component in their expert group, the speaking component is the backdrop to the writing assignment, they choose 1 or 2 different literary elements, as you can see. And in analyzing and under analysis, they work with the team captain who sort of directs the project. If I go on now to my next slide here, you see here a little bit about visual analysis of the film. This is a great slide here that shows many of the important features of visual analysis, including structure, theme, camera movement, music. And I also have here that's a list of great questions that you can see. So if I move on now quickly, because we don't have a lot of time, the students have to read as background information and supporting evidence in their speaking and writing. They have to read 2 external film reviews from the IMDb, as I mentioned, the Internet Movie Database, and this may give them additional support for their literary analysis. And if we go on now here, for example, I show students the team captain helps them choose and read 2 different film reviews. There are tons of film reviews for Forrest Gump, by the way, and they pay attention in the film reviews to the outstanding literary and visual qualities of the film that the reviewers may mention. So I go on and give learners another slide here that actually points out where to go to get expert reviews. They should be sure that the team members are reading 2 different reviews, and the team captain may decide to read the first 2 reviews, for example. And I ask students to take notes about the 2 film reviews using a template I give them. And in the handouts, you'll find the template as well as a really good student example of note-taking for another film. So now let's go on and look more specifically at the speaking component, which I say is the backdrop for the writing. So here, for example, students work first in an expert group, as I mentioned, and then they move on to the mixed group discussion. And here in the expert group, for example, the students work together to share the literary elements, film analysis elements that they chose. The students here in this particular speaking, they take on the role of a promoter, and they're each speaking and interacting about the best features of the film, as you can see here, and then they move on to, they come back to the expert group. So let's have a look quickly at what students do in the expert group. As you can see here, students in the speaking activity, they share their notes on the literary elements, or elements, one or two literal elements that they researched, and they interact with the other learners for a certain amount of 4 or 5 minutes, sharing the positive aspects of the film in their role as a promoter. And then if I go on now to my next, whoops, I'm going backwards here, go on to my next here. So as you can see here, to summarize the work of the expert group in the speaking component, students talk about the film's outstanding features relating to some of these, or all of these literary and film elements. They also make a list of 6 or 7 outstanding features. They refer to the notes they took on viewing the film and reading the film reviews. So that's a fun kind of background to the writing assignment that I'll talk about later. So if we move on now, and got to mention the mixed groups, because this is like a jigsaw activity where in the mixed group, each mixed group would have a student who has seen a different movie, and students could get to share the information that they came up with in the expert group, and then to convince other members that their film is the best film, put a little competitive element, and I call it a film festival. So students should be sharing what they have researched. And if I go on now to the next assignment here, which in this step, students come back into the expert group, and then they vote. They compare notes on who made the best presentation, and then they vote on the best film. And it gets students pretty excited about whether they made the best impression on their classmates, which is really a lot of fun. I always enjoy doing this. Here now, I want to mention that there's an optional step to this activity, which has students create a PowerPoint presentation. Students more and more are becoming very proficient at either Power or Google Slides, and they also get to present their analysis of a literary or film element, and use Screencast-O-Matic, a free application, a downloadable application that's now downloadable. It's free online to actually record and present their video. And students who've learned this, get a great kick out of actually learning how to produce their own video teaching piece. Okay, if we move on now to the focus of this presentation, it has to do with the writing component. So after talking about what I've talked about to the background to the writing assignment, let's have a look at this writing component, and I'll show you the detailed writing instructions learners have. Then I ask learners to plan their essays, and I let learners know about the evaluation criteria by sharing an analytical rating scale. Students love to know what they have to do to perform well. And I also show students an example of a good student essay as a kind of model. It's not great, but it's a good model. So if I go on now to the writing instructions, I asked learners to write a literary analysis of the film they studied using 1 or 2 literary components, such as character or plot, and then I asked them to write 4 paragraphs, 500-word, 400 to 500-word essay, and with the complete instructions actually to this are available in the transcript. So 4 paragraphs. 400 to 500 words, minimum 400, maximum 500 words. And I point out things to keep in mind, such as having a debatable thesis, using topic sentence at the beginning of each of the paragraphs. Very important, the topic sentence. So having actually explored these terms with students before doing the project. Also using supporting evidence in the form of the film itself or film reviews, the 2 film reviews, and also using a works cited section. So students get to learn how to use the MLA style sheet for citing work. used and referenced. So if we go now on to the planning activity, I ask students here to prepare the writing activity, and here's an outline, the beginning of an outline. I give learners to plan their essay, laying out the main points. The opening sentence should have a good hook, for example, to interest readers. And the introduction should include, of course, the thesis statement or the controlling idea, mentioning one or two literary elements that they want to analyze. And there should also be reference to some supporting evidence, as I mentioned. That's so important to get students to do some background reading and exploration. The full outline is available on the transcript. So if we move on now to the actual, here's the beginning of the analytical scale. It's the first part, and as you can see, I used to evaluate students for the literary analysis, and it includes all the features of good writing that we've been discussing in the course, the language course I teach, and it focuses on, as you see there in the slide, content, which is very important, organization, the structure, style, cohesion, syntax, as well as vocabulary, grammar, punctuation, and spelling. The complete rating scale is available in the transcript of this talk. So let me go on now to the next piece here, which is the actual example I show students, which is actually the beginning of a pretty good example of a student essay. And it has a catchy title, Blade Runner, A Humanistic Vision of the Future. It includes information, background information about the film, as well as reference to a film review, so a works cited. And the last sentence has a pretty good thesis statement. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. The complete essay is found in the transcript. And I give learners this activity. I give learners actually an activity to improve the essay and correct the works cited section at the end of the essay. And that activity is available in the handouts. And I've also included suggested answers for that activity in the handouts. So let's move on now to the next slide, which has to do with the really fun type of thing that I've been developing with a colleague called the automated corrective feedback tool from the virtual writing tutor. So here, let me, as I search my text here, the virtual writing tutor, I'll first describe the virtual writing tutor, what is it? Then I'll also look at, it's a free tool, I'll mention that afterwards. And then I'll look at how students use the tool in their getting feedback. We'll look at the writing instructions in the virtual writing tutor, the film essay checker. After we'll discuss briefly the types of feedback that the VWT provides. Lots of great feedback. And finally, we'll look at the comments of one language learner who used the tool to improve her writing. So that's a big, let me scroll down here now to my next piece. So what is this virtual writing tutor that I use for automated feedback correction? Well, it's a free tool. It's an online grammar checker that's it's also a proofreader that helps students count words, check spelling, check grammar, punctuation, paraphrasing, word choice, and self-assessment of target structures, and even pronunciation. It's 100% free, so don't worry, the students don't have to pay anything for it. In membership, it's good to become a member. There are error correction games that help learners and novice teachers to become better proofreaders. And it also provides, most importantly for this talk, an automated writing evaluation scheme which can give a score and formative feedback on a variety of writing assignments. Not only this, but especially the film analysis essay checker that it's called. So what's the process for using the virtual writing tutor? So as you can see, how do learners use it? So with their research in hand, having completed the speaking assignment, the learners write a draft of their essay in the multimedia lab. They do it online, But instead of handing in the assignment to the teacher, to me, and waiting 2 weeks for feedback for a 500-word essay from 25 students, takes a few hours to correct. The students run their essays through the Virtual Writing Tutor's formative film analysis essay checker, and then in not 2 weeks, but just in 2 seconds, the system generates feedback. It provides them a score, and it gives them comments on how to improve their grades, their performance, using formative evaluation comments. Students revise their essays and then hand them in there. They can write more than once, and then they hand in their final draft to me and then to evaluate. And so far, it's not perfect, but the results are really very, very encouraging. Here, for example, now are the instructions for the first part of the essay in the film analysis checker. So as you can see here, students are asked to write 400 to 500 words, literary analysis in 4 paragraphs, using again the literary elements that they've been studying, and they can refer to a film analysis, to an example, Blade Runner. We made it a perfect example this time, 100% correct in the checker. So as you can see in the slide, students are asked to begin with the essay with a provocative question, which is easy to read with the checker, to give context for the film, include a good thesis statement using literary elements, and then the complete set of instructions, by the way, is available in the transcript, which you can obtain. So let's move on now to my next piece here, which has to do with the kind of feedback that students receive, which is really quite, I'm really impressed with the work that a colleague of mine at another college has done. So learners receive all this different kind of feedback from the film analysis checker. For example, if for the introduction of the essay, the checker notes whether students began with a question or not. The checker also rates, interestingly, the thesis statement for the use of literary elements, such as, let's say, plot or character. For each of the following 2 paragraphs, the checker examines the strength of the topic sentence, interestingly, the use of transitional expressions, as well as the use of quotes that are important, the sources of information that they've used. The vocabulary checker, students really appreciate, identifies the number of literary and film terms that they use in their essay. It also examines language accuracy regarding grammar, spelling, and punctuation. And finally, the essay checker counts the number of works that are cited at the end of the essay. It's really pretty amazing, the feedback learners receive. So here's a comment from one young lady who used the essay checker. And as you can see here, she says, I improved my score through the Virtual Writing Tutor and revised it at least 7 times. This is a really gung-ho motivated student who went back and reviewed it and revised it 7 times until satisfied with my text. So indeed, I improved it a lot. I think she went, as she says here, from 60% to over 90%. The comments were really good. Virtual Writing Tutor gave really good comments, very specific comments. For example, when my topic sentence isn't strong enough and didn't make a strong enough claim, it tells me my grade is between 60 and 100. And so I can improve it. And that's now, I've improved a lot. And she mentions vocabulary, and the feedback is really good. So Ada, thank you for that great comment. As I say, we're improving that checker all the time with my colleague. Let me quickly mention the students' reaction to the actual whole film project as a whole. This young lady here said, the film project, what I like was to analyze the theme of the story we chose, which is the picture of Dorian Gray. Do you know the author, Oscar Wilde? By searching analysis on the net, I found that some of the things that I would not have thought about alone, which made the project more interesting, and I felt like I was learning to analyze an artistic creation in a more profound way. What I also liked about the project is that we could rely on our classmates to have more information, and that sharing in the speaking section. So thank you, Emile D., for that comment. Okay, let me complete our little presentation to say. So I hope you liked this very quick tour of the film project. I know I went very quickly, but you do have access to the transcript and the activities. You can obtain them. And so I want to ask you, do you want to, let me say a few words about professional development. Do you want to give your students more practice in writing academic language? Would you like to improve your teaching and writing skills? Are you looking for a fast-paced online course? Well, are you interested in getting 3 university credits? Well, you can sign up now for the fully online course, Teaching Writing to Intermediate and Advanced Language Learners, available at English Learner portal. So I thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy you doing the project, and you can always contact me at frank@frankbunkowski.com, my email address. Adios. Bye now.